The Tennessee Titans may have lost, but it was a perfect tank Sunday. I'll break it down on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is a recap of the Titans' loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was ugly, it was wet, it was rainy, it was gross, but it was a beautiful Sunday for the Tennessee Titans, even though they took the L, because at the end of the day, this season right now, it's not about wins. We're going to talk about why it was such a perfect Sunday for the Titans. I'm going to explain why you can't have it both ways with your criticism of Brian Callahan, and we will give a final update on where the Titans draft pick stands. Again, very good outcomes for the Titans on this Sunday. Before we dive into all of it, I do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. Hope everybody had a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas out there. But with that being said, the Tennessee Titans lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars 20-13. And look, right off the bat, I know that there's an element of nastiness that comes with the way that we're feeling right now. The Titans got swept by the Jacksonville Jaguars with Mason Rudolph. They scored a total of 19 points in those games. Look, that in a vacuum doesn't feel very good. And it sucks that that's where the Titans are at right now as a team. It is unfortunate that I'm not as angry with that, and I wasn't hoping for the opposite. That's what I wanted to happen at this point, and that is a sad state of the team. But the reality is, to dig out of this hole that they have put themselves in with multiple terrible drafts and bad free agent moves, and to fix the issue that they have ahead of them, what they have to do is amass high-level talent. They aren't just missing depth, they're also missing high-level talent as well at key positions. So, for the Titans to go and lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were also 3-12 at the time, it was so critical to the future of the franchise. And yes, there is a short-term sting that comes along with that kind of loss and the situation that it is. But at the end of the day, you have to feel that short-term sting for the betterment of the team going forward. And we talked on the game preview episode about how imperative it was that the Titans found a way to lose this game. And look, they certainly didn't tank it. They didn't try to lose like we're all, we call it a tank day. We call it a tank loss, all that. And that's true for, all intents and purposes. But it's not like the Titans tried to lose that game. Now, there were little decisions that get made. Amani Hooker out of this game. Kenneth Murray placed on IR. Tony Pollard held out of this game with an ankle issue. And look, those guys are actually banged up. But if the Titans were in the playoff race right now, do you think Tony Pollard would have played in this game? Because I do. Do you think if the Titans were in the playoff race right now that Amani Hooker would have played in that game? Because I do. And I know that Will Levis is a turnover machine, but Mason Rudolph almost fumbled a ball. He threw an interception that was the difference in the game. He took sacks. That play at the very end of the game where the Titans are throwing a seam route on 4 verticals to Nick Westbrook-Akine, we saw Will Levis hammer that home for a touchdown just a couple of weeks ago. But Mason Rudolph didn't have the same velocity on the throw and couldn't hammer it home. So little things like Mason Rudolph playing help you lose games. Will Levis would help you all on his own as well. I acknowledge that as well. But anyways. And again, it's not just the opponent being Jacksonville. It's not just that the Titans needed to lose. It's how all the dominoes will fall. And we're going to talk about where the Titans are at finally after the first round of games. But huge result. The New York Giants dropped 45 points and find a way to beat the Indianapolis Colts. Huge for the Titans. Also, I would say talking about the game in general, the Titans lose, the draft position, other results that help the Titans. But the game wasn't as boring as the last time the Titans and the Jags played. It wasn't as bad as the 10-6. Tajay Spears had 20 carries for 95 yards, made some plays. Calvin Ridley, 5 catches for 84 yards. We saw Chigakonkwo make some plays as well. He had a run for 17 yards on a reverse and had 5 catches for 42 yards, continuing his string of pretty good play. We saw some good things. We really did. So, look, I'm not telling you to be happy about a loss. If you're mad that the Titans lost, you're well within your right to do that, and understandably so. I totally get the type of fandom where it's like, hey, no matter what, I want the team to win. I'm not telling you that you're wrong for thinking that way. Sure, if that's how you want to fan, then go ahead. But I know there are a lot of you out there like me who realize that for the Tennessee Titans to dig out of this hole, they need to put themselves in the best position possible. Now, whether that be having the number 1 pick and taking one of the quarterbacks, whether that be having a high pick and trading down, whether that be having a high pick and taking a non-quarterback like an Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Either way, there's no way that you can argue the Titans are in a worse position having a better draft pick at this stage of the season and where they're at as a franchise right now. So for the Titans game, the game wasn't the most exciting game ever, but it wasn't the most boring game that I've ever watched either. There were good plays. There were some big shots, Got to see some of the players that I like the most on the team, and Chig and Calvin and Tajay do some things. Like, I'm here for it. For that to happen, the Titans to lose, not only that, but the Giants to win. What a perfect Sunday. What an absolutely perfect Sunday for the Tennessee Titans. And look, I wish the Titans were fighting for a playoff spot. I wish we felt better about the Titans coaching situation. I wish we felt better about the roster, all of that. If this is going to be a quick turnaround or if this is going to be a slow build, either way, we need the Titans to have good draft picks, especially in this draft class where I continue to say and will continue to say this is a draft class that doesn't have a lot of elite talent in the first round. So having a high pick and being able to trade, being able to pick a guy you want at whatever position you want, absolutely critical. And right now, as things stand, the Tennessee Titans are in a great spot. And we're going to talk about where the Titans draft pick is and what kind of avenues that they will have. First, though, I got to talk about the reaction to Brian Callahan here. And, I feel like there's a lot of people out there trying to have their cake and eat it too. And you just can't play it like that. First, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or you were paying for twice? It definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features, of course, is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore. I've already saved a ton. Plus, their goals feature, I've been able to set aside money automatically for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We're reacting to the Titans' 20-13 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know that the Titans lost, but it was a perfect Sunday. The reality is, though, that the Titans are in a lose-lose situation in a lot of these games based on fan reaction. And I just want to speak to you guys about not trying to have it both ways, because I feel like a lot of people are trying to have it both ways here with Brian Callahan and the Titans, and you can't do that. It's not a fair approach to take. But with that being said, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. On tomorrow's episode, we got a report that Brian Callahan is safe. His job is safe. So I'm going to talk about that from over the weekend, and that's kind of part of this. So, a lot of people are saying the Titans need to tank. The Titans need to lose. We need a new quarterback. We need a new whatever you want, whatever player in the draft you want. A lot of people are saying the Titans need to lose. The Titans need to tank. And that's the side I'm on as well. I think the Titans need to lose these games. The Titans need to get as high of a draft pick as possible. That's what they need to do. But on the other hand, some of those same people are also constantly calling for Brian Callahan's head. To me, you can't have both of those at the same time. You can't say the Titans need to lose, and then when they lose, talk about how terrible Brian Callahan is. To me, that can't happen at the same time. It's like you're asking them to lose, and when they do that for you, you're mad about it. You're angry at them for doing what you asked for. It's like ordering a steak, and when they bring it out, you say you wanted chicken. Like, you can't do that. And I've just seen a lot of people try to criticize Brian Callahan consistently for the games while also hoping that they lose. And it's like, think about what would have to happen for the Titans to split that gap. What would have to happen for Brian Callahan to split the margins on that? Is it last week against the Colts? Is it they scored 30 points? They made a comeback attempt, but they still lost anyway? Is that a happy loss for you where you're like, hey, Brian Callahan's offense scored 30 points. Hey, the Titans came back in the second half, gave a really good effort to try to get back into that game. They still lost, though. Is that a game you'd be satisfied with? Because the reaction that I've seen throughout the week doesn't seem satisfied with that. So how does this actually work? You know what I mean? How can the Titans tank and lose the games that we want them to lose while also not making everybody mad at the same time because they're losing? It's an impossible keyhole to try to get through. So that's why I think that we got this report earlier this week over the weekend that Brian Callahan was safe. I think that's where it came from. It was a report from Jeremy Fowler from ESPN. Again, we're going to dive more into all of the reports we've seen over the weekend on tomorrow's show, and I'm going to get into what that means going forward in the future, Brian Callahan being back, and what that kind of looks like and what the expectation would be in 2025. But I think that it's no coincidence that we get that report earlier in the week or right at the beginning of the weekend that Brian Callahan is safe in 2025 and he's expected to get back. And there's some other aspects to that report that we will get into. And then we see Tony Pollard sit in this game. We see Amani Hooker sit in this game. We see the Titans put NPF inactive and go with Jalen Duncan, who immediately gets hurt at the beginning of the game. And then you got John Ojukwu out there. Look, I know that Nicholas Petit-Frere has been terrible. I know that Nicholas Petit-Frere shouldn't be on the team next year. I know that Nicholas Petit-Frere, you could argue, has been the worst offensive tackle in the NFL this season. I understand all of that. And I know that when I say this. Nicholas Petit-Frere is a better player than Jalen Duncan or John Ojukwu. I promise you. I promise you that. I promise. It may not be by much. We may be talking about terrible players. You know, it's not like I'm saying one guy is good and the other guys aren't. No, they're all terrible. It's 3 bags of trash. You know what I mean? At the end of the day. But Nicholas Petit-Frere has been better than both of those players, John Ojukwu and Jalen Duncan, all season long. So the fact that we get the report about Brian Callahan being safe, and then we see no Amani Hooker, Kenneth Murray on IR, no Tony Pollard, sitting NPF, making him inactive. Going with Corey Levin at center or Daniel Brunskill at right guard. I know that there's injuries. I know that they're banged up. Dylan Radin sits out. Jalen Duncan goes out, immediately ruled out, shoulder injury. Like, we're just seeing Nick Folk. We're not playing you. Again, there are some of these guys, you have to wonder, would they be playing if the Titans were in a playoff push? Because I think they would be. I think they would be. So I don't think that the Titans deliberately went out on the field and Brian Callahan called plays he thought didn't work and players told themselves they don't want to win and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. But some of these higher level moves and some of the ins, some of the outs, look, teams have been tanking in the NFL for forever. People act like people don't tank in the NFL. They 100% do tank in the NFL. 100%. But it's not the players trying to lose or the coach calling plays that he doesn't think is going to work. The players and the coaches try to win at all times because their jobs are on the line. But little decisions with status, with ins and outs and inactives, I think those little things tell us all we need to know. So I'm just saying we can't know for certain. We can't know for certain with 100% no doubt that these things are connected. We can't know that. But to me, I just find the timeline pretty conspicuous that, we get that report about Brian Callahan and then we see some of these in-out start decisions. So my overall point is, back to cap it off again, is that a lot of people want the Titans to lose. And a lot of those people also are mad about Brian Callahan every week. But there is no way for Brian Callahan to lose games and do it in a way where you'll be happy with it. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have it both ways. Either you want the Titans to lose and you don't criticize Brian, because I don't think this was a bad Brian Callahan game. Brian Callahan didn't do anything terrible in this game. They just have terrible players. They didn't do anything crazy. This was just a normal NFL loss where they looked like a bad football team. So to me, this is a perfect loss. And I'm not going to criticize Brian Callahan and go after Brian Callahan for this loss while also acknowledging that I wanted them to lose all the time. Just don't feel like you can do both of those things at the same time. But with that being said, draft pick update. Titans are in a great spot. Titans fans, let's cap off today's recap edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Titans lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars 20-13, but honestly, it was a pretty good loss in my opinion. The game wasn't fabulous, but it wasn't awful. The Titans needed to lose this game against Jacksonville. Huge implications at the top of the standings. And considering some other things that happened in the NFL on Sunday, this loss is even better. So the Titans lose, Jacksonville wins, the Raiders win, and more importantly, the New York Giants win. All of us collectively say thank you to Drew Lock. Thank you, Drew Lock. You are an angel. You are a scholar. Like, what a demon, man. Just shout out to Drew Lock. Also, shout out to Antonio Johnson from the Jacksonville Jaguars, who knocked that pass away from Nick Westbrook-Akine at the end of the game. You guys are my Titan ups for the day. But the Giants, not only do the Giants go out and win, knocking themselves out of the first overall pick, but they put up 45 points against the Indianapolis Colts and end their season. Just absolutely magical stuff is what it is. Shout out to the New York Giants. Just incredible, man. So now the Tennessee Titans have the second overall pick. The second overall pick in the draft. Right now, the New England Patriots have the number 1 pick, and then the Titans have the second overall pick. Now, we have talked about this, but the Patriots are in a good position here because next week they play the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills, more than likely, we don't know for certain, we can't know, but the Bills will probably rest their players. They'll probably rest. And look, the JV Buffalo Bills can still beat the New England Patriots. No doubt about it, for sure. But New England has a much better chance of beating the Buffalo Bills without Josh Allen than with him. So hopefully the Bills rest their starters next week, have a pseudo bye week going into the first round of the playoffs because they can't catch Kansas City now. It's already locked in. The number 1 seed's locked in. So New England has the number 1 pick right now. And boy, they looked awful on Saturday against the Chargers. That was a terrible football game. But again, against Buffalo, and New England's at home next week. New England is at home against Buffalo. Hopefully sitting starters. The Patriots win. The Titans lose to the Texans. Number 1 pick, Tennessee. I would even be fine with the number 2 pick. I know that people, because what I think would happen there is New England would trade back with someone who wants a quarterback, like the Giants or the Raiders. And then the Titans would take the second quarterback off the board. Honestly, I think Shedeur Sanders is a better fit, but Cam Ward has higher potential. So I'm not super high on either of the quarterbacks. And I'm going to talk about this probably on Wednesday's show about my general feelings on the quarterbacks and where I've settled at in my feeling on the Titans getting a quarterback. Just a quick preview of that. Essentially, if the Titans want to draft one of these quarterbacks, I'm for it. I'll support them. I'll look at the positives. I'll hope that it works out. But I'll also know that I am a little bit skeptical at the end of the day. And if they wanted to pass on the quarterbacks for someone else, I would be fine with that too. I understand both directions. It just depends on how they feel in the building about these quarterbacks. So I'll dive more into that on Wednesday's show. But Titans are the number 2 pick right now. New England plays Buffalo next week. And I'm obviously the Titans could win next week. That's still a possibility. And then it would be devastating at the end of the day because it would move the Titans down a lot. They have a strong strength of schedule, which is a huge tiebreaker, which is the main tiebreaker for draft position is strength of schedule. And the Titans, theirs doesn't favor them over a lot of other teams. So the Titans could beat Houston next week, and that would suck, and we would all have to figure out what happens with that. But Houston just got mauled. Houston just got whooped by Baltimore on Christmas Day in prime time. Everybody watching. Biggest game of the year, 31-2. Their offense didn't even score. They got the 2 points, obviously, from a safety. They got destroyed by a real playoff team in the Baltimore Ravens. Houston, regardless of their draft position, cannot sit their starters against the Titans next weekend. They cannot do that. They need to build momentum. They need to play some good football. They need to get back on track. You can't have the last football that C.J. Stroud played before the playoffs be a 31-2 loss in the biggest primetime stage you could possibly have. You can't have that. The Texans got to come out and win and get revenge on the Titans for their previous loss that started this kind of spiral for the Texans. Figure out how they can play without Tank Dell, who's going to be out now. They have to kind of reform their offense a little bit and build momentum and start playing better football. So the Texans have every single reason in the book to put their best foot forward next week and try to go out and play a competitive football game and win and build some momentum going into the playoffs. So I feel very confident that the Houston Texans are going to do everything in their power to win that game. And look, here's a reality. Will Levis is a turnover machine. He threw a pick 6 in the game where the Titans beat the Houston Texans. But Will Levis also gives you the opportunity to hit big plays, which Mason Rudolph just simply does not. And without those big plays, because you're going with Rudolph instead of Levis, I don't think the Titans can beat the Texans again if they had to. Now, of course, back to what I said at the beginning of the episode. I get it. If you're somebody, I don't want to see the Titans at home in the Oilers uniforms lose to the Texans. That's not fun to be a fan. I get it. You're fine to feel that way. But I can tell you that there's a majority of people who recognize that one short-term loss and one Sunday of bad feelings in a loss to the Houston Texans at home in the Oilers uniforms could potentially get the Titans their next quarterback in the future. Imagine if the Titans got the number 1 pick and they took the quarterback you like, whichever of the 2 quarterbacks it is. What if they took the quarterback you like with the number 1 pick? What if you don't want any of the quarterbacks and the Titans trade back from number 1 to number 3? 2 quarterbacks go, and then the Titans get Abdul Carter in a first-round pick next year. The Titans get Travis Hunter in a first-round pick next year. Whatever you think is the best thing, the Titans are going to have the potential to do it with no issues if they can get that number 1 pick. I want the Titans to have a top 3 pick. And right now, it's top 2 or further back. Much further back. So, overall, a really, really good Sunday for the Tennessee Titans because more than anything, the Giants won. The Giants have a better strength of schedule than the Titans, so they go behind the Titans. It's just absolutely beautiful. So New England Patriots at number 1. They play Buffalo next week. The Tennessee Titans at number 2. They need to make sure that they lose to the Texans next week, no matter how painful it very well may be. But a perfect tank Sunday for the Titans. 1 more week away from having great position, and then the offseason is on. And I'm going to be here 5 days a week, all year round, like I always am. Bonus episodes for all the big news. Nobody's putting out the content that I am here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. Make sure you guys throw a thumbs up on the video, throw a tighten up down in the chat. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.